Greetings, everybody! I am the Starving Martian, and today we're looking at Mars Attacks the Holidays. We looked at this a couple weeks ago when we read a Halloween story, and today we're diving into Veterans Day. So, happy Veterans Day to all you veterans out there, and to all you non-veterans. Make sure you thank a veteran you know. I think we all know a veteran. And so... Anywho, this book here, Mars Attacks the Holidays, we're looking at the back cover right now. The book had 5 variant covers, 4 stories in here, 5 variant covers, and yet none of the covers are Veterans Day covers, which is kind of weird. You get 2 Christmas covers, you get a Groundhog's Day cover. Groundhog's Day isn't even one of the stories. So we're looking at the back cover here because this main image, this big shot of the Martian head, does come from the Veterans Day story. So we're going to start off on his ugly mug. So, yeah, we're going to be reading Mars Attacks Veterans Day, or as it's actually called in story, The Men Who Cried Martian. It takes place in the days leading up to the first Veterans Day, or Armistice Day, as it was known at the time. I'm just going to be calling it Veterans Day because it just rolls off the tongue easier, and that's what we know it as today. And the story, as we will see in just a moment, is a flashback told by a great-grandfather to his grandson, or great-grandson. So it's a little bit like Princess Bride. Sort of. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's get down to the actual story, shall we? Alright. So, last time we looked at Mars Attacks Halloween, which was extremely cartoony in nature and really goofy. This time around, you see the art style is a lot more realistic. I very much like the way the Martians are drawn here. And the story itself, I think, is more in line with what you would expect from a Mars Attack story. The humor isn't so slapsticky or pun-related. It's just that dark humor that Mars Attacks is known for. And it doesn't permeate the entire story. It's actually a serious story with some funny bits, which is, to my mind, what a good Mars Attack story should be. So we're told right off the bat that Orson Welles, when he did that infamous radio show, War of the Worlds, and caused a panic, was actually being forced to by Martian invaders. See, the Martians plan on invading that very year. And they're trying to sow chaos before they get there. At least that's what Grandpa here says. This is Norm. He's speaking to his grandson, or great-grandson, who calls him G2, which makes me think Transformers. And he's telling that young whippersnapper things that he can't possibly understand. He weren't there, darn it. So he talks about back in his youth, a saucer was landing. It was an advanced scout ship for the Martian forces, and it was witnessed by one of his veteran friends. So they're all gathered around the Veterans Hall, and they're talking about the first Veterans Day coming up and what they're going to do to make it special, to make it something the public will remember. And one of their number comes in and tells them that something strange just landed, and you can still see it glowing out there, and maybe we should go and take a look. And this old Civil War vet's like, "Dadgummit, let's go get him!" And well, they talk about it for a little bit and decide, and I love this line, we're old and we've been drinking beer all night. What could happen? So why not? And they decide to go. They tell young Norm here, this kid in the red, that's great-grandpa, as a child, to stay behind. Norm, being a child in one of these stories, does not stay behind, because what child in any of these stories ever does? And they find the Martians, who are indeed invading, and I decided that it will be 14 Earth days before the Armada arrives. We must remain in seclusion until then. You two, take the first watch. Destroy any Earthlings who come near. Alright, so the Martians are going about and doing their business, and these veterans are spying on them. They don't know it, but they got only 2 weeks until the Martian invasion begins in earnest. And little Norm here is able to keep a scream to himself. so he's not discovered. Sadly, the same cannot be said for Sparky, who takes an instant dislike to the Martians, but as we all know, the Martians don't like dogs very much either. I like this panel. It's a clear, it's a clear callback to the infamous destroying a dog trading card. It shows the same thing without being a direct copy of it, which I appreciate. It's nice, to see a reference to the original without it just being, photocopied and pasted on. And little Norm's like, Spike, no! And everyone else like, oh my gosh, these guys mean business. But they have, the smarts not to run out into the field. Now, this guy is named Norm, by the way, which is clearly a nod to Norm Saunders, the main painter and artist of the Mars Attacks trading card series. And I don't know if that's just a name drop or if they're actually suggesting that he witnessed this and would base some of the cards that he later made off of his childhood experiences. I don't know. That's an interesting concept. So the veterans discuss what they're going to do. The old Civil War guys in favor of just going in guns blazing, but the other guys recommend, this isn't our battle. We've fought our wars already. Let's just go to the authorities. So they bring it to the police, who say pretty much, oh yeah, you old geezers, you're out drinking at the Veterans Hall all night, and you expect us to believe when you see aliens. Look, we heard the same radio story you did. We know all the panic that it caused. Just calm yourselves down, fellas. And so they don't get the reception they want there. They try going to the media. They try speaking to some neighbors. Nobody will believe them. And so they decide that it's down to them. If they don't stand up to these Martians, who will? So they get themselves dressed up in their old uniforms and come marching out for war. And here we have a nice 2-page spread. Unfortunately, it won't stay open well enough. This poor Martian's head gets pinched in just from the way the pages fall. So it's nice to be able to say this is what he's actually supposed to look like, but this is what it comes off. It looks more like somebody kicked him in the nards, man. Anywho, so they quickly find the Martians' weak spots. The Martians, of course, don't go down without a fight. This panel makes me laugh. What is he? It looks like he's actually smothering this guy or shutting him up with his hand over his mouth, but it's just on his faceplate. The Martians, of course, get in a few licks of their own. This panel, obviously, a nod to Burning Flesh, another trading card from the original series. This guy here has been, he's lost his arms, I suppose we could say. But they're able to get a hold of some Martian weapons and turn the tide. And the remaining Martians hop into their saucer and flee for their lives, deciding, we must abort the invasion. We are not ready to conquer Earth. Unfortunately, in spending all their time and effort deciding what they're going to do about the Martian invasion, they never had a good chance to come up with a good Veterans Day idea, so they end up just walking down the street with a couple signs. Everyone says it's pretty lackluster, but fortunately that catches on, and Armistice Day, later to be known as Veterans Day, becomes a thing that is done, and Grandpa closes off the story. To which the little kid says, that's great, I gotta go, got a football game. And Grandpa, still in reminiscing mode, says, hopefully the day will never come when we'll be forced to fight again, but if it does, we'll be ready. So here's these Martians, and now they're coming in force. We had a couple of scout ships before, but now that they think that Earth is well defended, they're not going to leave things to chance. So the invasion might have been put off, but it might also have been made worse in the long run. Thanks, Gramps. But that's the Men Who Cried Martian, the Mars Attacks Veterans Day story in Mars Attacks the Holidays. We'll be coming back to this book very soon because our next story is Mars Attacks Thanksgiving, which I happen to have the Mars Attacks Thanksgiving cover for my edition. So that was the story, and I thought Veterans Day was an odd choice for this collection. When you only have 4 holidays you can cover, you think of the major holidays that pop in your head. Veterans Day is not often amongst them. It's one of the, oh yeah, that's a day too, isn't it? But considering the fact that Mars Attacks is all about war between the planets, it's based largely on a book called War of the Worlds, and the fact that going back to the very first trading card series, Martians versus the U.S. Army has always been theme. So when you think about it in those terms, it actually is appropriate, and it's good to see some actual real American heroes being portrayed as the heroes this time. Usually the army is outgunned, outmatched in every way, and just wiped out. So it's nice to see them actually win a skirmish every now and then. But that was Mars Attacks Veterans Day. We will catch up with you later for another Martian escapade. But until then, this has been the Starving Martian reminding you, as always, to keep watching the skies. Bye, everybody.